In sort of the early to mid-90s, there was sort of a global scene called the demo scene. Hackers and crackers used to make intro screens to the games that they'd cracked, sort of saying, look, we've cracked this game, aren't we awesome? One thing that kind of was born of that was the idea of sort of having music to kind of accompany it. That kind of took on a life of its own. People would basically take limited hardware and try and get stuff out of it in real time that people didn't think was possible. For Christmas one year, my brother got me a floppy disk which had some software on it called ProTracker. You know, I just kind of clicked with it and sort of stuck with it. I just had no idea what I was doing. I loved it from day one because I was just kind of messing around, making noises with my computer, and I thought it was the greatest thing. Obviously I know a bit more about musical theory now, at least I like to think I do. There came a point where I just thought, you know, I've pushed the software that I've got now as far as it can go. And a friend recommended Reason to me, which it was version 1 at the time. So I downloaded the demo. It was only as complicated as I wanted it to be. I mean, if I just wanted to stick a sampler in the rack, I could. And then sort of came the magical moment where I pressed tab and sort of all the cables at the back started dangling, and I thought, I've really got to buy this. I'm just going to spend the rest of my life just wiring one thing to another and just constantly messing around. Pretty much everything I know about CV routing and cabling and that kind of thing comes entirely from Reason. When I was actually in a studio and kind of messing around with cables and things, I was like, oh, so this, you know, kind of translates into sort of a real world environment. That's really cool. The sort of cabling metaphor, you know, we just understand. That's just something that's really cool about Reason. I still find myself using Thor more than any other synth. For me, it's just incredibly intuitive to work with. And it's just really cool to kind of have this semi-modular approach in a really non-threatening, not too technical kind of way. I mean, a lot of the stuff I've been writing more recently will just start with a Thor in a rack. I'll just kind of be messing about with it and come up with a sound that I really like, and then it will just kind of go from there. This is a production track that I recently finished. It's called The Steady Climb. It was written primarily for sort of TV, film, that kind of use. For this song and all the other songs I wrote, I kind of imposed limits as to kind of how long I would spend putting them together. That's not to say I rushed it or anything like that. It's just once I had the idea down, that was it. I kind of tweaked it as much as possible. So this is what it sounds like. So in the case of this song, and a lot of the other songs that I wrote for this production album, I wanted to use blocks. Going back to my tracker background, I used to work a lot with patterns, and it's kind of going back to that sort of mentality. I actually started with just a single block, and this is what it looks like. Basically everything from which the rest of the track kind of stems. By the time you've kind of got that one section of the song down, you've essentially got half the song written. As is often the case in these production tunes, I decided to, you know, start with one element or something that sounded really cool. And in this case, I decided to use a gated pad, which is just a single chord passed through an alligator. Immediately, you've kind of got this sense of rhythm and something and movement, and something's going to happen. As for the actual pad itself, that comes from Tom Pritchard's Vast refill, which I use a lot in this track. So I kind of had that to start with, and then I thought I'll add some drums. All the actual drum hit sounds, they came from Tom Pritchard's Thor Kit refill. I hadn't even thought of Thor as, you know, a decent drum machine until I gave these drums a go, and they just sound really, really cool. I mean, this is just the bass drum on its own. That's a really cool bass drum. That's a really, really beefy bass drum with, you know, it's a really cool kick, that snap to start with, and, you know, it just filled out the song perfectly. So, you know, we've got a sense of movement, we've got rhythm. It's nothing overly complicated at the moment, but, you know, it's a good foundation from which to work. And then I decided to mess things up a bit more and added a little glitchy drum line, a piano part which was based on Radical Piano, a sort of simple bass drone that again is entirely Thor based. Adding all that stuff together. My block is more or less complete, time to start working backwards. Then I went to Song View and basically started putting loads of blocks in. To start with, if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, pretty much everything is grayed out. except for that pad and the piano, which itself is automated to fade in very slowly. Even though I've got all these elements ready to go, it's kind of a case of when do you bring them in? Just kind of let the song progress. The kind of beauty of it is as well, if you then want to change anything further down the line, you just change one element of the block and it kind of updates it for the rest of the song. That's a really useful thing to have. I really wish I started using blocks sooner. I always kind of think of really cool things that I'd like to see in the next version of Reason. Oh, that will never happen, or oh, I'm the only person who wants to see that. And then it will happen in the next version of Reason. Wow, that's gonna be a good upgrade. It was just purely a hobby when I first started doing it. I just really enjoyed it. Sort of just mess around sort of with computers, and the tools were there for me to get my music out there. Why not give it a try? So I did, and yeah, it seemed to work out. Where I am now, I can't think of any other piece of software I'd rather be using.